welcome to a Passenger Seat podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all usually recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. Peggy is still away for restoration, but she is imminently due to return, so I'm hoping this will be one of the last currently recorded podcasts in a different car for a while. But I do have some other pre-recorded ones that will come up later in the season. So today I am in Dad's Singer Chamois Coupe again. You know how much I enjoy driving this, and I've not actually handed it back since the Singer Owners Club weekend. I went to take it back to Dad, and he said, well, you've got this thing coming up this weekend. Do you want to keep hold of Lulu to be able to take her to that instead? And so I was very grateful for that. So that's what I did. I took it back, we tweaked a few little bits and bobs, and then drove back off in it again. And so I've had Lulu for nearly 2 weeks now, and I'll possibly be keeping her a smidgen longer. We'll see how things go. So what's the thing that I took Lulu to at the weekend? Well, it was the Rolls-Royce Enthusiasts Club's annual rally and concours d'elegance at Burley House. You might remember that earlier in the year the Women Drivers Social Club went along to Hunt House, the headquarters of the Rolls-Royce Enthusiasts Club, to their International Women's Day event that we hosted at the Hunt House. We had a look around all of their archives and had a lovely lunch and explored the kind of historical features there and had a great day out. And whilst I was there, I was talking to the wonderful Lydia, who is the head of marketing there, and she mentioned that they were actually looking for an events manager. And so I asked what that job would look like, asked kind of what they were looking for, and basically over a few emails and things like that, I expressed an interest in the role, did a little bit of an interview, and was offered the job, which was really exciting and is a big change from what you guys know me for, which is my criminology job. But I was already kind of looking for a change, looking for something a little bit different, and this kind of all lined up perfectly. And I think it could be a lot of fun and give me the opportunity to be quite creative with some ideas and get some fantastic experiences. And my current job, well, I've technically had my last day now, had a 3-month notice period, so that meant that I wasn't going to start until after this year's annual rally. But what they thought would be interesting is for me to go along to see kind of what their annual rally currently looks like, experience it as kind of a guest, to get the ideas and things going ready for next year. So that's what I did. I went along to the 3 days at Burley House. So the first day, me and Dad went, that was the Friday, and Dad actually came and picked me up in another one of his cars, my absolute favourite, you know that I love, his 1935 Singer Le Mans Nelly. She's typically a little bit naughty, and that day was no different. She was playing up a little bit with her throttle and also her clutch a little bit. So he drove most of the way, but once we got to kind of the outskirts of Stamford, I drove Nelly in and into Burley House and around Burley House's grounds and parked her up, which is a fantastic experience, and I always love having the opportunity to drive Nelly. And once we got there, we realised that we could solve some of the problems with a nut, because one had come off of one of the carburetors. And so it was a case of keeping our eyes out on the auto jumble, but also getting in contact with some local family there to see if they had any ideas about where we might be able to get a nut quite locally to Burley House, which is in Stamford. So once she was parked up, we went for a bit of a walk round. Friday was easily the quietest day. I would say there was maybe 30-40 cars out on display on the field, some more cars in display in what they were calling kind of their members village area, and then a lot of stands and stalls and things like that. Some of them were quite slow to open because it was such a quiet day, but it was nice to kind of walk around some of the stands, talk to some of the stand owners, and then also explore the cars. Dad and I had bought a little picnic, and Nellie had got parked under a tree, so we were absolutely loving being in the shade when we went back to the car to have a drink and a sit down. And yeah, it was quite a nice little setup of the kind of villagey area and then the kind of cars around it. Whilst we were there, we spoke to quite a few people that I'd either previously met, either at the NEC in March, not long after I'd accepted the job, or kind of through some visits that I've done to Hunt House since. So it was nice to catch up with some of those, especially so close to my starting day, and actually get to meet some of their cars as well, because I'd only seen one member's car, I think, on the NEC stand, and then also some work that was being carried out on another car. One of the owners that we got to speak to on the Friday was planning on having the opportunity for people to test drive his 2 pre-war Rolls-Royces on the Saturday, which is a fantastic thing to do, because it gives those that have later Rolls-Royces the opportunity to try something a little bit older and perhaps garner an interest in those, but also people who perhaps haven't driven any pre-war cars the opportunity to drive them, or in my case, somebody who's not driven any Rolls-Royces the opportunity to drive a Rolls-Royce. So obviously I signed myself up to have a little drive on the Saturday. We caught up with some of the Hunt House team, explored the display of new Rolls-Royces and Bentleys that was on, went round a little bit of the auto jumble, eyeing a few bits and pieces up. Dad unfortunately didn't find a nut that would do the job, so he ended up walking into Stamford to pick one up from a place there and then walking back to fit it, and it did make things a little bit easier on her throttle on the way home. She certainly wasn't having it stick on like she was a little bit on the way there, so that was good. Well, all in all, Friday was quite quiet, but a very nice day. I went home, and then on the Saturday I went along in Lulu by myself for the kind of morning, and then Jamie came and joined me later in the afternoon. It was a lot busier, I would say kind of double or maybe triple the numbers of the Friday in terms of cars, and it took me a good little while to walk around all of them, spot some interesting number plates, some interesting bonnet mascots. I managed to see I would just presume a replica of the Whisper on a car, and also to see the car that I'd spotted the day before, which had an aero engine in it, actually up and running, which was a fantastic thing to see. And it was an impressive thing parked, but to hear it running as well was truly fantastic, and a real piece of craftsmanship all over, really. Another car that had really stood out to me was one that was parked up actually in the village area. It was one that had taken place in some rallies and races as part of the works team back in 1913, and was displayed with lots of photos from that era, and had a huge, great kind of pipe on which the Spirit of Ecstasy sat, and that was supposedly to help the water in the radiator have somewhere to expand to if it needed, but I was reliably informed by the owner that it doesn't really work, but it does do very well on long journeys, and he'd actually driven it all the way over from Belfast on the ferry, and then driven it all the way across to Burley House, and it was fantastic to see it there, especially alongside all of its historic photographs. There was one of Henry Royce's own cars there as well beside it, which was fantastic to see. So yeah, it was great exploring all of the cars. There was kind of a few more stalls and stuff open on the Saturday, some more kind of entertainment put on as well. There was a duo of women doing some kind of war songs and singing, and some seminars, and I went along to a really fascinating seminar called Rolls-Royce Horror Stories, which was put on by some Rolls-Royce and Bentley restorers about some of the most horrific things that they'd come across in their time working on the cars, things for people to look out for, things for people to avoid doing themselves. So for example, they told us about trying to put some dry lube in the windows of a more modern Bentley, I think it was, and using an aerosol can, and once they'd got round to like one of the doors, obviously a lot of the dry lube had been used, and so what they actually ended up squirting into the door was propellant, and that reacted with things in the door and basically caused the door to explode, which obviously cost them as restorers a lot of money, but it wasn't something they'd encountered happen before, and was quite interesting to kind of hear about. But yeah, there was loads of fascinating things, and some really graphic photos of some of the damage that had happened to these cars, either by previous owners or previous restorers, or in that particular case at their own hands of kind of trying to restore these things. So really fascinating, and unfortunately I didn't get to stay there for the whole of the seminar because I had booked my driving experience for not long after that seminar had started, but I'd really enjoyed listening to it, and I think they were a really cool thing to have on. So we then went for my driving experience, and I was driving a 1930 20-25 horsepower Doctor's coupe, and so really lovely and open top, and very impressive to look at. There was two cars available. The other was a 1932, and I was kind of quite pleased with the one that I'd ended up with though, and it was not as difficult to drive as I thought it might be. It was a little bit heavy on slow manoeuvres, but once you got it moving, and if you were kind of turning more gently round things, you kind of got to grips with it a little bit better. But it was an absolutely beautiful thing, and a huge privilege to have a go at driving, and a fantastic thing to kind of have as an option there. So really enjoyed that. We were out for kind of maybe 10 minutes having a go at driving it around the site with another Rolls-Royce behind me that was also under test drive. So really a lot of fun. About 3 o'clock-ish, Jamie came along. I showed him some of the things that I'd spotted that I thought were particularly interesting, so some of the more technical tents that I thought he'd enjoy, and the Shorelock display, which was really fascinating, and the woman on that stand was so informative about kind of how it works, and such a cool thing to see displayed and explained. And so for those of you that don't know, it's to do with kind of fixing cracks in engine blocks and things, and so that was really interesting. So really appreciated her giving that explanation. Had a look around some of the cars as well, and then we were there for their Fizz and Canapes event in the evening, which was also accompanied by a charity auction for Macmillan Cancer, and there were some truly fantastic prizes, and the people on our table managed to get quite a lot of those fantastic prizes. So for example, tickets to Goodwood's Festival of Speed, tickets to Salon Privé, tickets to the Chelsea Garden Show for incredibly reasonable prices in this charity auction. And it was great fun. There was some other stuff that was a little bit smaller as well, but yeah, some fantastic prizes within that I'm sure they will massively enjoy their days out with those things. Headed home in Lulu that night, and then it was time for Sunday the following day, which is their big event, and it was truly humongous. I would say there was probably triple the amount of cars from Saturday on the Sunday, and they were all parked in their classes. There was cars parked in front of Burley House, huge amounts of cars. Fantastic to see, a huge display, and cars that were only there for the one day really shined up and polished up for all of the judging. It was great walking around in the morning, seeing the judging happening, and then seeing the rosettes go on the cars, ready for the awards ceremony in the afternoon. I went for a bit of another wander round and a chat to a lot of people. I had the opportunity to talk to quite a lot of members, which was a fantastic experience to have before I'd started my job. So really lucky to kind of get to speak to them and hear their thoughts about it all, and take some of that on board. Sunday seemed to go so quickly because I was talking to so many people. I got to talk to a WDSC member who was there with her aunt, who's would usually have a Rolls-Royce there, but her restoration on the Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith, I think it was, had been slightly delayed, so they were there in the WDSC members' Saab and having a fantastic day. The weather for the whole weekend could not have been better. It was warm, sunny, but when the sun went behind a cloud, there was a lovely breeze that kind of cooled everyone off a little bit. And fantastic display of cars that I spent ages walking around alongside all the chatting, and before I knew it, it was kind of 4 o'clock and time for all of the judging, prize giving and things like that in the ring. So I sat and watched that for a little while, and appreciated some of the beautiful cars that were going around, and the stories that the very informative tannoy announcer was giving. And then they also had what I believe is the oldest Rolls-Royce, Little Sue, come for a little drive around the ring as well before I headed home. It's been an incredibly long weekend, but really fantastic, and I've got lots of ideas and things to take forward into my new job, which I'm really excited about. So lots of stuff in today's podcast. I hope you've really enjoyed hearing about it and hearing about my new job. And if you've been watching on the YouTube channel, I hope you've enjoyed some of the footage that was collected over the weekend. I had a brilliant time going around and kind of capturing photos and footage and things like that of it all, which I hope you've enjoyed too. But that's it for today's podcast. Thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.